welcome to Flooring Models Kit Review Time. Today we've got Revell's new Level 2 Imperial Shuttle, obviously Star Wars, Rogue One and everything else like that. Now this is one of their sort of easy kits, so basically it is a snap type kit, no glue required and all the rest of it. But our plan is we're going to have a good look around the kit and then we're going to put it together. So what do we got? Nice box art on the front where it looks like we've actually got the model itself, or a sort of an artist's impression of the model itself. Doesn't look as detailed as the actual one in reality. As you can see, it's level 2. This isn't going to be a slouch because it is going to be 20 centimeters basically in width, so it's quite a long gangly type things like this. Your kit number for this one is 06716, and a quick look around the box. As you can see, you don't have too much on it, and on the back we get a good look at what we get. So we do get internals. It doesn't look too bad, some of the details on this right the way through, and as we've done, to be honest, with the kits you can all see around me, with the exception of the figures down here, these are all the Revell so-called kids kits, which actually paint and weather them, and you can go off and look at these all over our YouTube channel. They're all free to watch. Do turn into some really good kits with basically a couple of hours work. So this is what we're going to do with this guy. We're going to paint and weather it as well, and go through the motions and see exactly what we got. But first of all, let's have a look at the kit. So in the box we have got, like we've been finding with all the others, I might just pop this down in here. We've got the instructions, a few bags. Now the thing is, the big thing you sort of notice with this is the plastic itself is very heavy, it's very dense. With all these kits, this is because technically they're kids' toys, so they're designed to be played with and all the rest of it. But that's not to say it doesn't give some really nice little features and everything else like that. Okay, so down in the book, we've got the usual thing, obviously with the call out and all the bits and pieces like that. We've got the parts on the sprues and then showing it basically going together. So we've got the top wing going down in there, and then the lower with a little mechanism, and we've got some of the little laser cannons being fitted in there. Pretty straightforward. Same on the other side, and then we've got the actual landing legs, I do believe these are. Depending if you're going to have them obviously in the deployed or the up position. Now being click and play, they are somewhat interchangeable, but you probably want to make sure that you've got a good fit on them, because obviously too loose they're just going to fall out, too tight you run the risk of shearing them off, so just be a little bit mindful of that. But if you are doing it gear up, then obviously, or pads up in this case, you can obviously put the doors on just like this. Some more detail going down there if you're going to have the gear doors down, obviously with them deployed in that manner. Okay, then we're working up on the main fuselage, and it is saying about a little bit of weight, and strangely, as I said, this isn't going to be a tail sitter, it's going to be a nose sitter, so you are going to have to actually add 20 grams of weight to the rear end of this. First time I've seen something like that on these. Forward facing, the laser turrets put on there, and then the wing system and this cog mechanism being fitted in there just like that. Lower half goes up, which actually then completes the sort of sub assemblies underneath. A little bit of clear glass, or in this case tinted glass because it's black, is going to fit in there for the cockpit. Okay, cockpit parts all going together, pretty straightforward. Crew, if you're going to fit those in, you can pop them in, and it looks like it has an over piece which then fits down, which is absolutely fair enough. And then it's just a simple case of fitting the tail system on, and then the cockpit forward fuselage is then going to plug in the front, literally just like that, completing your build. So all in all, not a lot to this at all, so it should be quite a bit of fun. Okay, so what we do, we'll have a look at some of the plastic parts in detail. Okay, so backed up somewhat separately. Okay, so we have the pre-painted little crew figures, as you can see literally down there. I'm not going to get those out, but actually for the point of this, they're pretty dire the way they've been painted and all the rest of it. But, you know, for the point of view of popping this in, it's perfectly adequate. So looking at the plastic, as we said before, it's very crisp, but it's very strong. It's pretty sturdy stuff, this. The downside to it is we have got some pretty nasty, if you can see them running up here, sink marks. Now sink marks are caused literally where the plastic is injected from the mould very quickly, and as it cools it shrinks back. Okay, so as we can see, pretty nasty sink marks. We got them up both sides, but again, this is one of those things, as we've spoken really of all of their kits, this is a great jump off point to start doing detailing and all the bits and pieces that you might want to do to the actual model. All in all, I don't think it's bad at all. Okay, looking at the front, again, not too bad cockpit painting. In the great scheme of things, I think that's perfectly adequate for what we would need. Okay, bearing in mind you're never going to see it because it has a black tinted canopy system. Okay, so again, that's okay. Underneath here, this veining and this sort of louvedour business, that's very nice again. The guns, okay, they need hollowing out and repainting, but that's something we're going to do to this one. And again, the actual forward part of the cockpit, that is no problem. Okay, it is literally all there. No real sinkage on that one, which is quite nice. Okay, then we're down into, so let's do the big bits first. So this is the wing section, if you like. So if we do the unders, and again, no real problem underneath these. You can see them like that, perfectly adequate. There isn't much detail on these. Okay, so the detail we've got here is quite nice. It is recessed details, which is a nice touch, with raised as well, as is the real thing. So that's very nice. We do have some flash here and there, just around some of the parts, but it's not on the sprue parts themselves. Okay, usual thing though, you might want to just take a sanding stick just to some of these ejector pins on here. The whole point of that is to make them flush, so when we get two halves coming together, you don't have that thing of it pushing itself apart. Okay, it gives a cleaner, nicer fit, especially this guy here who's definitely raised. So a couple of swipes with a sanding stick will take care of that. The outer wings, okay, so this is the part you're really going to see. This is the one, nicely done. The paintwork's very crude, but we're not even going to look at that because we're going to redo it totally. But generally the surface detail isn't too bad. Okay, we're assuming it's supposed to stop there, but we've got a panel line that just sort of is a bit weird in the middle. In fact, it's not. It should go all the way through, so we're going to have to take care of that one and that one down in there, but that's a 2-second job. Nothing to really sort of get worried about. Okay, and as I said, again, just make sure that these ejector pins are flush, okay, and down and out of the way, and make for a nicer fit, and we can easily glue that and take care of it, no problem at all. But again, detail wise, I'm thinking we're okay. The top, so this is the tail fin itself, as you can see. So it is going to be a sort of inward fit, as you can probably see on this guy running right the way around. So this one's going to fit to the inside of it. It is painted black. Again, it's going to be a case of somewhat trying to test fit it. It's not going to be easy because once this stuff pulls together, it is extremely difficult to get apart. But generally, I don't think it's too bad. But this is the thing. Looking at this surface detail, it's pretty good, I have to say. I know a lot of people are sort of seeing my way of thinking now. But originally, when these kits were sort of released, by Revell, and they went through the motions of putting up what they were going to do. Everyone was absolutely horrified because I think a lot of people were quite excited that they were going to get a, well, basically a brand new tooled Revell kit, and actually, yeah, Revell did the easy option and literally went down the road of reboxing other manufacturers type stuff. So fine molds, obviously their kit's sort of legendary, but compared to Bandai, like chalk and cheese, it's day and night. Okay, but these kits are right on the money for the kids. The kids can put this together and fly it around the lounge, or from a modeller's point of view, we can put this together, take care of all the problems with it, detail it up, and you've still got yourself a really good model at the end of the day. And it's not going to break the bank. Well, apart from that one will, but the rest of them are all pretty good value for money. Generally, looking down here, this is the underside. Again, quite nicely detailed, nicely painted, and everything else like that. So from our point of view, we'll just give this a coat of primer and start again. But from a kid's point of view, the paintwork isn't too shabby at all. And then obviously the surface details and things like that under there, very nice. I don't think it's going to take too much, to be honest. And even down here, be quite a straightforward job of removing the engines and then perhaps putting in an LED light system behind there, or whatever you might to do. The tail gun system, these are actually hollowed out as well. The barrels are actually hollowed out, which is quite a nice little touch with that one as well. So generally, no problem with that. And as we can see, we do have the date on these of 2006, which was the original moulding date. And if you can catch it down there from the 206 when these first came out. And here they are again. A little bit of updating, I think, in the painting and that, but generally not too bad. Okay, and then the last part, we've got the guns, the doors, and a few little details. And okay, this stuff in here is horrible, but we've seen it before. It's easy to get rid of it and transfer over. A little bit more crude, some of this. It's a little bit more basically moulded, but this is all stuff you're not really going to see at the end of the day, so we're not too worried about it either, because obviously we've got the nose system going to plug in to this guy and things like that, so you're never going to see it. And down in here, you're not going to see it either, because it's going to be covered over. All right, so really we can't complain about it. But this is the thing, as we've said with all of these kits, and I'll say it again, it is just that nice thing, and great, because the kids can put this together within 20 minutes and they're good to go, and it gets them into the hobby and all the rest of it. Now, unfortunately, the clear part here, which has just been flat coated on the underside, which gives it on the top, is an absolute scratch to hell. This feels horrible, horrible. We've got the bars running down the side. It wouldn't be rocket science to polish that and re-put the silver bars in down the side, but to be honest, you could probably get away with it. It's not a problem with that either. Okay, so personal choices, whichever way you want to fit it. It'd be interesting to see how that fits in there, if it's going to need any modification. It looks quite, well, it looks quite horrible. We've got flashy bits and everything going on in there, so it'll be interesting to see how that all goes together. But generally, from a kit point of view and something for the kids, this is an absolute must for all the Star Wars buffs out there. It's a good scale, it's not too big, it's not too small, it's about right, and it's a perfect jump point for any modeler who actually wants to have a go and obviously super detail this and go for it as well as the kids. Okay, so I've taken the liberty of taking all the parts off the sprues and we've gone around and cleaned them all up. Last up, we're doing the glass. Now, to be honest, the glass works pretty nasty. So we've got in there medium sander on the softer side of the two, if you like. And then usual thing, when using sanding sticks, never push. Let the sander do all the work. You'll make a lot less damage, okay? So literally just run the sander over the entire thing. Okay, but don't push. As soon as you push, you end up putting big scratches in your plastic. When you put the big scratches in, all the sanding work you'll do after that is get rid of those scratches you've made yourself. Okay, so remember that. Then we've got this guy down here, and it looks a little bit scratchy. So what we got is a older sanding sponge, and we are literally, all we're doing now is getting rid of all the scratches that we've made. Okay, so then we just go in like this. Okay, so that gets rid of it, and it's still dull. Okay, right the way through. Then we're just going to come in with a polisher. Okay, and then we're just going to get rid of the scratches we made. And again, I'm not actually pushing down on this. You're literally just rubbing over the surface. Okay, literally all the way through. And you rub away. And you're looking for any big marks in there. And as you can see, it's getting better all the time. It's got some sink marks in there, but I'm not worried about that. Then we take the white side, which is the miracle bit. And then we're just going to keep going over. And as you can see, it's all going very shiny. Okay, and there we go. We're all back shiny and glossy again. Simple as that. Now the little white dot, what we'll do is we'll come in there with a little bit of clear later on once it's fixed. Touch in there and that'll take care of it. Alright, so there we go. No problem with that at all. So that is all the parts taken off and cleaned up. And I took that liberty, as we said before, to get rid of the ejector pin marks. Just down in things like here. Okay, they're not too bad, but you just want to get rid of them because, as I say, it can cause a little bit of upset and a little bit of a split between the two, and you're going to have a few problems. So, down on the instructions, part 1 is calling out for the two tails to go together. Now we are going to paint this, but for the moment, just in case you're not going to, all we're going to do is put it together and we'll paint it completely as a whole. So we've got locating tabs, as you can see, and rings right the way around this guy, and then we are literally just going to push them in. Okay, so we're just going to go in, and we're just going to work our way around each and every tab. Okay. Right, and put it down, give it a push. This is the difference between this plastic and everybody else's, because you'll stress it. You see, we've got a small seam running right the way down the middle, but this is where you would technically come in if you wanted to and use glues. For the moment, we're not. We're just going to put it together, and that is the tail actually done. Then we've got the two tail systems here, so I don't think it matters actually which way they go, but what they're going to do is go inside. Okay, so it sort of crosses over and then slips up. And this is what we're saying about getting rid of that all-important join. And then what you need to do is just pull it slightly back on itself so you can get that inside in. And to be honest, this is looking like a little bit of a weak spot. We've got quite a nasty gap all the way around here, but to be honest, that is where glue will come in. and we can take care of that. Okay, but there we go, that one goes in there literally just like that. Then we take the two guns, okay, and then these guns are going to sit, remember which way around, just put the other one together. So we have them both done, just make sure we are all the same. Okay, and again, sitting down all in there, pushed in. Again, these are going to need a little bit of work as well. So then what we've got is this guy is literally just going to pop up underneath, and he's going to sit in here, literally, just like this in the up position. And then this guy is keyed, and it will lock in just the same from the inside, and they're going to both face up on that wing system just there. To be honest, we still got to do just this guy clearly. So I haven't cleaned up this one. So what we're going to do, keeping the sounding stick nice and flat. Okay, we're just going to run this around. And what we'll do, we'll pop all this together, then what we're going to have to do is going to come in here and take care of these gaps, because quite frankly they're going to be very noticeable because they're going to sit on the outside. Okay, so we need to get rid of those quite a bit. Okay, and obviously we've got this gap in here, so we need to do those. Okay, so this guy is just going to be exactly the same. And these are movable as well, so once these are in, you'll be able to actually traverse them forward and up and everything else. Also, it acts as a little lock holding it all together. Alright, so that's both of those done. Then we're back over to here. Say same on the other side. So the landing pads, to be honest, there isn't too much going on with these guys, if we're honest. Okay, so we just have these, and then these feet push in. They sort of go in, although to be honest they don't go in very well. Okay, just ease that guy out and just try it in this one. I'm guessing it should go in just behind the little part down there. Then we'll place it down, a bit more of a nudge, really trying to get that home. And then again the same on this guy. That's it, fits in there a lot better. Okay, so there's your gear done, literally just like that. We'll pop them out of the way. Okay, now down here, obviously, this is that bottom plate. If you were doing gear up, gear down, you would put that in. Okay, so if you wanted to, you could literally pop this in, and then, as you say, we've got the little doors, and all they're going to do is literally, I don't know if they're universally the same, but the doors will fit in probably a lot easier now. They are slightly keyed left and right, so you can't get the front and backs, but they literally are just going to push in. So it's easier to put the doors in now. I'm not going to force them all the way in because, to be honest, we're going to have this repainted. These aren't brilliant fit. They don't... Actually, it's a little bit better. They are keyed left and right as well. So if you find it just falls through the hole, you know it needs a little bit more. Okay, but there we go. So that would be technically how it's going to stand. Just like that. That's both of these sections done. Or you could have it upwards, total choice on whichever way you want to do it. Okay. Then we move over to this part, which is this one just down in here, which is the top bit. So we've got these two guns for the front. Okay. Just looking. These guys, it looks we're going to key in one way only. Okay, so with the gun facing down, again, they're just going to sit in there, literally, just like that, each side. And then the rear part, we're just going to come in. Is it just going to fit to the outside, or is it literally as easy as that? Okay, so actually what you've got, the slot running all the way down the back. This is literally just going to key in, and it's going to sit there. And to be honest, again, it really needs gluing and all the rest of it, which is something we're going to do afterwards. And it's going to need a little bit of weight. So 20 grams of weight. To be honest, from my point of view, I always like to keep a little bit of lead floating around. So it's 20 grams of lead, or whatever you like, as in weight wise. So I'm going to guess them at this. They're probably saying 20 grams, and I haven't got a clue what 20 grams is because I haven't got any scales right with me. Okay, but I'm going to guess it's something around about this. And don't forget, you could use old coins and various things. And for the moment, because I'm going to take this apart and we're going to glue it and everything else, I'm just going to temporarily tack this in place just down in the back here with a little bit of tack just to hold it in place. It might need more, and that's the other thing as well. By the time we pop this together, we can see if it needs more, we'll add a bit more to it. If it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't, all the rest of it. Okay, then we come back with these wing sections. Okay, and these are literally just going to cog inwards. I've got to remember how these go now. Twin to the rear, and then it is going to be that way when it folds up, I do believe. Yes, okay. So we're just going to pop both of those in. Okay, so you sort of hold it with them in the down position so you can see them just like that. Okay, and with all that in, just making sure we need this forward little bulkhead in here as well. This is going to slot. You've got a little tab on here. This is going to slot down in here. And again, just making sure it's down flush with the other sides. And then this guy is going to come up and it's going to just all fit in. So hopefully this is where it's make or break time. Again, just that thing. Don't overforce it, just give it a little bit of a wiggle. And you'll notice that things will push. And actually, to be honest, again, needs a little bit of glue, a little bit of fiddling around with. But actually, that isn't too bad in there at all. Okay, so we'll just give it a, see, tail weighted, which is good. Okay, so that's that bit done just like that. Then we've got the inside of the windscreen. Again, I'm not going to ram this all the way in, purely because we're probably going to need to take this back out to fix a few problems. But to be honest, if you didn't want to, what you could actually do is easily mask round this and repaint it in gloss black. So that's it fitted on there, literally just like that. Okay, and then you've got two parts down under here, so this guy's just going to go locating tabs all the way up and push in. Again, quite nicely painted, to be honest, just under here like that. Then we've got the underside. This is the sort of chin side and everything else. So this is going to, sorry, we've overshot. We needed to get that one in first. Okay, so this is going to fit just down in there. Okay, so it can actually tilt. Okay, so this is going to fit down over those two bars, just down there. And then this guy comes in at the top. So other way of doing it, of course, line it all up down the back. Then you can insert the front parts. That's in there. A little bit of flash just down on this side, so we're going to lose that. Just pick it off with you now. Okay, and then obviously you've got the various parts. Now if you wanted to put crew in there you could, but from our point of view you're not going to see them. So just being careful not to do what I just did, and that's to actually push the glass. Again, a little bit of squeeze. There's a little bit of pressure getting these in. And this totally lifts forward so you can get these in. Okay, and then that folds back and locks in, literally just like that. And then it's just a simple case of this being fitted. 3 pins at the front. Again, don't put your finger on the glass because otherwise you're just going to wreck it. Okay, so that sort of comes forward, but technically we'd glue that up. Okay, that's on there. And then your tail is just going to lock in at the back. And there we go, that is your technical Tidarium shuttle. Now the trouble is the wings won't fold down like this, technically with the gear down. Alright, so that is a little bit of a problem. But if you wanted to, you can have it in the up position just for landing. Moment of truth. And actually it's not even a tail sitter. Alright, so there we go, that is the Tidarium shuttle. or Imperial Shuttle, whichever you want to call it. Very, very nice. It goes together, again, really, really good. Again, it's a lovely little scale. I think it's really nice and everything else. Obviously, we've got the doors if you wanted to do it in flight, if you wanted to have it in the down position and all the rest of it, really easy to do and everything else like that. So there we go. Very, very nice indeed. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go around, take it somewhat apart, and we're going to paint it. Okay, so here we go. So we've disassembled everything pretty much to what we need, and we're going to just do a little bit of filler work and take care of a few little problems. Now the first big one was this guy. Okay, so we've got some huge big gaps running right the way around this one, so we need to take care of. All right, so first up what we got is a little bit of the extra thin. And to be honest, we're just going to give generous amounts, and we're just going to get this to go in to start to literally glue it all together. Okay, now it doesn't have to be particularly neat or tidy, because in a moment we're about to ruin everything. Okay, with a bit of filler right the way around the outside. So this is just to literally help with the capillary action, get this all to flow round, get it all to lock in. Okay, but obviously you don't want to put too much glue, because if you put too much glue, literally it's just going to fill up inside and all the rest of it. Okay, so just a little bit at the moment running around everywhere. Now this gun is in the up position, because the chances are the glue, the capillary action, will go in there and it will weld it up. Okay, but that's not a problem, because we're going to have ours in the landed position. Okay, so again we're just coming up. Now this top seam, as you can see across the top here, a couple of coats, is going to be absolutely fine. Okay, we're not going to have to worry about that at all. Okay, but the rest of it, unfortunately, we really are, because they are not nice at all. Okay, so just making sure those locating things are all in there really well then. Good old-fashioned pegs, just to literally hold it. Okay, just into position as we go around. Now over here we've got the gap on this top one, so again we're just going to come in with extra thin. Okay, and generous amounts of it, and we're going to let the capillary action zip around everywhere, and hopefully, as it is doing, it's going to weld this up. Okay, now this is the quick drying extra thin, which is quite handy for this type of work, because it dries quicker, you get less chance of sort of sinkage. Okay, so that is in there and it's down like that. All right, so we're just going to give that a few minutes just to start to bite. The other one is this big lump area and everything around here. Okay, so again, just squeezed it together to make sure it's all in, and generous amounts of glue running down. Got a little bit of a gap on that guy, and letting the capillary action do all the work, and then up in the inside, gluing from the inside to let the capillary action run up and down and seal that all up. And then as you can see, we've got to do just the same on the other side. So again, good amount of glue, bit of a squeeze. As you see, some of it really isn't liking going together, but the glue will melt everything all in. Okay, so be quite generous with your glue. And again, there we go, that's pushing in there, very nice. A little bit of a clean up job, and I think we'll all be good to go with all of that. Okay, then what you can do is, if you've got glue marks on there, just use the brush and brush around, and you can take out any said little glue marks that perhaps you don't want. Okay, just over the top, and you can sort of melt them all in. Just saves sanding and everything else a little bit later. Okay, so that is drying and going down. We're not going to glue up the inside areas, because to be honest, if we ever need to get in there to take it apart, that'll be an easy one. We've also gone around here, and to be honest, we've put glue right the way around the seam, all the way around in there like that, just to glue it all together. We've got a little bit of a departure on the front. So again, we're using the extra thin, the speedy stuff, just to go round and in there, and that makes that nice and solid, no problem at all. Right, down here, obviously this is the rear parts and everything else. We've got a little bit of tack, just holding this bit of lead down in there, everything else like that. So to be honest, we're just going to grab a little bit of super glue, and we're just going to put a little bit of super glue on this, just to hold this little guy in place. Okay, so don't be too frightened of your super glue, just squirt it all over. The tack will hold it in place and everything else like that until it's ready to go. And then what you can do, if you have got a little bit of kicker, you can give that a squirt, The kicker then activates the super glue, makes it dry almost instantaneously. Just remember the fumes from it are a little bit nasty, so to keep them out of the way. Okay, and we're just going to place that there, and that can start to dry and do its bits and pieces like that. Okay, then we can return to this guy. Okay, pop back in here, and we can begin to weld this up. Now this is styrene filler. Now we've spoken about this a lot. There's a how-to tutorial about making this stuff and everything else. This isn't gloop, like you take some sprue offcuts and you mix it with weld action glues and everything else. This isn't that, because that is very soft, you get big sink marks and everything else. This is made out of solid styrene sheet and it's mixed in, to be honest, with extra thin. The two together give you a far better finish than the old-fashioned gloop and all the rest of it. But basically you just take it up like this, and then what we're going to do is very carefully brush it in the groove. Okay, then what hopefully will happen is this will sink back, and with a light sand will take care of everything we need. Okay, but this is thick enough to be able to weld the gap together without any sink marks or anything else like that. But this we will reuse, because what we'll do is we will put a light panel line rescribe in this, I think. So that's why we're not too worried about any little bit of shrinkage. Okay, as this goes over, and we're just going to run it all the way down, absolutely everywhere. So just brushing it nice and smoothly off the areas where you don't want it, all the way down, all the way over here, top to bottom. Okay, then we can just bring it down, and this will fill, and with a very light sand, hopefully we'll take care of all of these gaps and we won't have to worry about them at all. Now the thing is, this will take a few hours to dry, so what we're going to do exactly the same to all the other parts that need in this as well. Alright, we're going to go round, we're going to weld all of these up exactly the same way as we're doing here. Okay, and then we'll be able to come back, hopefully a little light sand just over everywhere, and we'll be good to go to be able to get this into paint. And then we're going to repaint, reassemble, and we'll all be good to go with it. Okay, so we're just going to finish off this little area here in the middle, and again you can tidy this up at any point, literally with extra thin. Just brush it and it will thin, rehydrate this stuff, and it will then take care of any nasty messes, or you can just sand it as normal. Okay, but when you're done, as we've done on this guy over here, who should be drying, this one is drying on here, that's it, all done and welded up. Quick clean job, quick sand over, and we'll be good to go with it. So what we're going to do now, leave it a good couple of hours, let it totally go off, and then what we can actually do then is reassemble this, and then we can get over to paint. Okay, so I have actually been pushing on quite a lot with this one. What I've actually done is taken care of obviously those gaps. I've sanded, filled, and we've reprimed, and we've literally just put it together. So I'm hoping this will come in. Now, we had problems with gaps down the back here, just pushing it together and everything else. So generally, this little seamed one that runs across the back and everything else like that just needed to be squashed in to get it to lay in flat, and I'm hoping this is dry now. It's been drying a little bit and hopefully the wings still move, which they do, which is a good sign, means we haven't glued them together. Now down here you do have quite a nasty seam line. I'm going to leave it because actually what happens is that is naturally a seam line on the real thing. So what I'm planning on doing is, just to save a little bit of time, I'm going to leave it, and then what I'm going to do is rescribe it after it's been painted and everything else. Just chisel a nice little channel in there, it'll take a wash and it'll be fine. But generally, you can probably see we've got these little ones down in here. We've popped along, so what we've got to do now, I'm just going to put a panel line just in there. We've already done this side, we need to do this side again, and pop a little panel line just in there, just to complete these wings, to put them in. So he says, looking for, here it is, this little guy. So what we need to do is pop this just down into where we are going to go. Got to find it now. There is a little mark. Now what I actually did, there's a tiny little mark running all the way down in there. I've already scribed it once just so I could remember where it is. So we're just going to come in again very lightly. So actually what we're doing is we're scribing more through the primer than we actually are the paint, the plastic itself. Now the reason for that is obviously we've come in on the line. We've already been through this a couple of passes, and we don't want to get too caught up digging into the filler and everything else like that we did on this one, purely because it's going to shatter and you're going to get jagged edges and all the rest of it, which to be honest is what's happened on this side a little bit. But by popping a panel line in there, what happens is you'll physically hide the original. Now these have been sanded. I'm just hoping this is going to tape this again nicely, so we're just lining up to everywhere we were before. Okay, I'm just coming in, and again just pulling through the paint and the filler. That gives us a nice panel line just in there. By the time it's had a wash and all the rest of it, it will be absolutely fine. Okay, so that takes care of that one, and we need to do the same on this side. So again, we're just going to pop this guy in, we're just going to rack it up to exactly where it needs to be, and we're just going to come in, couple of little passes. As I say, you just want to go as far as the plastic through the filler. Okay, and on this side, exactly the same again. And it's just a quick and very easy way of disguising a nasty join. And yeah, we could have gone down and taken our time and properly filled it and everything else, but we're trying to do this as sort of a one-day build, so we're hoping something like that will be a lot quicker. Okay, and there we go, that's those done. Now I haven't put the top on because obviously we need a little bit of room in there, and to be honest, down in here, it's already had one coat of primer, literally just over this. We took care of the seam lines down here, so we glued it and then we've sanded it in, taken the glass work out because obviously we've protected the cockpit area. There's no point sort of getting rid of that, and that just fits in there that way, okay, and everything else. So pretty straightforward, no problem with that at all, okay. So now what we can do, we're going to move over to the spray bay, we're going to paint it, properly give it a couple of coats of paint, get that down onto it, then we're going to pop around and pick out all the detail areas. So, because obviously we're going to lose all of this stuff under here, so we're going to have to repaint those in, all the little panels and the coloured areas and everything else like that, we're going to get those done. Okay, so we'll come back over here, mask up, show you about putting all of those in. Once those are all in, then obviously we can bring it all together, get it fitted in, everything else like that, seal a coat, a wash coat, and then we can pop on with the weathering. Okay, so over in the spray booth, as we can see, we've got our shuttle down in here. We'll start with this guy because he's the most awkward shape and everything else like that. Now, if you've been following our builds over the last month here at Flory Models, we've been doing these sort of Star Wars builds. I've made up what I call my Star Destroyer colour. Basically, it's 80% flat white, and then it's literally around about 15% XF19, okay, which gives a very light grey colour. It's actually more white than grey. As you can see, it's sort of down in here, all right, and then we go in there with a little bit of buff, okay, so literally just probably 2% of buff just goes in there, and this will make a very light grey colour. So we just make sure this has got a very good mix, okay, and then we'll just take this guy off. Okay, so we just turn our air pressure down a little bit. Thinners going in first, we're going to go straight into the colour cut. So it's a standard sort of 50-50 mix with your paint and your colours. That just goes down in there. We give this a whiz down in here. So we're using self-leveler for thinners for this one. This is Mr. Hobby. These are lacquer thinners into technically an acrylic paint. But because Tamiya are very, shall we say, not your true lacquers, they're more of a synthetic lacquer, you should have no problem with that. Okay, so that's in. Okay, check our flow. Okay, spray booth going on. Okay, and we'll start with some more of the awkward ones, so we'll start down here on this little wing. Okay. Yeah, so we're just going to do the edges. And then a We're literally going to spray this, and we want it to be quite mottly. As you see, I'm not doing nice even strokes or anything else like that. Okay. And it will lighten back, but the idea is it's going to be a little bit mottly as it goes through. A little bit of a gap appeared at the back, don't worry about that, we'll go through. A little bit eager off with the clamps. To be honest, this is looking a little bit darker than perhaps we were initially thinking. It's a little bit more grey, this. So what we're going to do is going to go over this once, and then we're going to lighten it with some more white into the mix, just to make it a little bit more of a nicer colour. A bit tricky when he's a little bit wobbly all over the place. Okay. Remember those leading edges and trailing edges. And obviously there's no primer onto this, it's just straight onto the paintwork, so again, it's one of those things, it's personal choice. But I quite fancy using Tamiya straight off the bat. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just going to put the grey over this, and then we'll come back in with that lighter shade. We'll just add a lot more white into this mix. And that'll give us probably a better colour. Okay, so that's half a colour cut gone just like that. Okay, I'm just going to stick him down. Alright. So what we'll do now, because we know this colour's a little bit dark, we're just going to come in with some flat white. Okay. We'll pop that into a colour cut. We're just going to come in then with our grey. And then, to be honest, we're just going to add our thinners straight into here. And we can mix this all together to make us a lighter shade. I'm going to even add a little bit more white into that. Because that still looks very dark. And that's what you're doing, you're just trying to find your right paint colour, your right shade. That's more like it. That's a better colour. Okay. So what we'll do is pop our lids on these. And that's why I think a lot of people, you worry too much about colours and shades. Doesn't matter if you're doing this, if you're doing a modern aircraft, if you're doing something old. At the end of the day, it should be just what feels right to you. And obviously when you go through weathering, it changes so much. Okay, let's try this guy. Okay, round two. And we can just put this right over, and I'm a lot more happy with that colour. That's the colour we want. that's it. And that colour that we got on there already just gives a little bit of shade, which is quite a nice little touch. Okay, so I'm just going to run around everywhere and just paint everything in the same colour. Okay, so back over from the spray booth. To be honest, what we're going to do now is take care of some of the little problems we've had. Now, the big one we had was, if you see down here, this is where it came through, and I filled it. Now, in theory, we don't need to fill it, so what we've done is we've cheated, and we've just made up a plastic card little sheet. So the easiest way for measuring these things out is I put them on. We basically come along, put your calipers on, get the size, and then on a piece of plastic card I will literally just come along like this, place it down, and using the blade I will just edge up to it and then scratch the line of the width that you want down in there. Okay, then I'll run over it with a blade, and then we just snap it and then cut the end into shape and all the rest of it. Okay, and that is as simple as that. And to be honest, when you're doing sci-fi work like this, it's the quickest, the most easiest way of doing everything. So what we're going to do, we're just going to grab some of the old quick set glue. Now we know we've got to pop around and fix a few little things on this guy. So what we're going to do is going to pop this one in. I'm just going to slide it up into position. Okay, once it's on, a little bit of a nudge, keep it flat, and then to be honest what we do is we just come along and just going to tap and flow just all the way around it, and this will help soften the edges and it will get it to all sit in. Okay, and that's on. And again, it adds more texture layer. Now, obviously, this one is literally 1/2 mil thick. It's quite thick. You could probably get away with a thinner one than doing it on here. The other thing as well, remember we had that big gap down the back? So, tiny little bit of filler. To be honest, this is the old-fashioned filler. Put it on, wipe it off with your finger, and you're good to go. We've got a tiny bit down the back there as well. We're going to sand and clean those. And to be honest, as you can see down here, we've got this little type of gap going on. If we fold this guy up, you can see it. We've got a little bit of a gap just all the way around here. So what we're going to do, again, we're going to cheat, because this is the great thing with this. All we're going to do is we take a medium sanding stick. We're just going to lightly sand it. And this is quite a rough. The idea being with this is that we can sand it flat. Okay, right the way across, and because we've got some nasty lumps and gashes and all the bits stand on there like that, and then what we got here is this strip stuff. So this is great, because what we can do is we're really going to cheat. This is why we like this stuff. Okay, now don't worry if your glue goes floating off and it runs off, because it will dry clear, so don't panic. So what we do, we just take this stuff, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to sit this right on top of those gaps, literally right over it like that. I'm going to come in with a knife. Okay, chop one just to take care of that. Chop two is because obviously we've got a height difference just between those two. Now the rest we're going to leave there, and then again we're just going to come in with our glue and we're just going to glue it down. Okay, I'm just going to give it a bit of a nudge. Now this is weld action glue, so what's going to happen is this strip will physically melt in. And there we go, we've taken care of that gap. It's going to be a slightly different shade. We are good to go and we're done. Okay, so we're going to repeat it on this side exactly the same. Okay, and this is cheating, but this is the great thing about all of this. We can cheat. So all we're going to do, just going to lightly sand just these areas. So we just want to go down to plastic so we know we're all flat. Okay, and we're just going to repeat it on this side again. So this is the quick set, extra thin, maybe a little bit too quick for this. And again, I'm rushing this because I'm trying to show you guys sort of instant areas. Normally you take a lot more care. Than I'm doing here. And again, it's just to show you how quick, simple and easy it is when you're working with this. And then what we're going to do, we're just going to pop along after this, and we are going to literally just spray in these areas. And normally, of course, you would take a little bit more care, but what we do is these little gaps in between here, once it's dry, we will cut them. It won't take long. In fact, this side's probably drying off already, but what we're going to do is we're just going to just slightly inwards. And we'll just pick these out. This is just to show you how quick you can take care of big bad seams, literally like this. Okay, and there we go, and then that wing set goes down in there and it fits literally just like that. Okay, so it's all been drying, and to be honest, we've done the grey work up on here. So literally we've just masked up down here and we've done these all in. Now this is going to get a wash right the way over it, so it'll knock it all back and dull it all down. So we've done that one. We've also been under here and we've done the outer parts, as you can see. Now on here, it shows it with grey bars running around the front, and there's a few other little details. To be honest, I've got pictures of the real thing over there from the model that was used in the film, and it hasn't got them. So I'm going to go with what I can see from the originals rather than here. And yes, when you look at that one, this is quite a crude version of it, but it will do for what we need. So last up, we just need to mask literally just down on here. It's a little bit of a fiddly area to get to. So what we're doing is we're just reusing tape, being very frugal with our tape allocation. So we just stick that in. We're just using the bits all over and over again, and then again we'll just take that one forward. Now because we've got a little gap just down the side here, it's pretty difficult to get in there, and if you was to try and curve it over, you're going to get that thing where it's going to wrinkle up and all the rest of it. So to be honest, I've got some 1mm thin tape here, and funny enough we left 1mm between the back and the front. Okay, so we can just stick that down, and you can probably see how well those fit now. They look just like the real thing as we had it before. So let's just stick this real one down and on. Doesn't quite go to the edge. Okay, that's that one on, and then this guy, we'll just overlap it because we know it's going to pull back against the rear like that. Okay, and all we do, we've got some grey, light grey, and we're just going to spray that in. Now we're spraying it neat. The reason for spraying it neat, you don't get any bleed. Okay, you'll get very little bleed going through, and always shoot it either straight down onto your model or away from everywhere else, obviously, so you won't be blowing it this way because you're going to cover your model, things like that. And then hopefully you just pull that off and there we go, that is down and on there. So this front one, what we can actually do is lift this front section up. We can reattach the glass down in here, and we can then re-click and fit that all up. So that is in there like that now, and we can actually attach it to the front end. Now again, there is some blazing little errors with this kit, whereas if we were doing a full-on build of it and rejig, then yes, down in these areas down in here there is bits physically missing. There should be metal plates in there that have colours and all the other bits and pieces literally like that. Okay, so there's that one on, and then we can put the top on here. Only goes in one way and that locks in, and there we go. That's a lot better colour for our transporter than we've had before. Okay, so that all folds up now and just sits here literally just out the way. So actually what we can do, just to keep things all nice, I'm going to find out which foot is which. This is the bigger one for this side. Or is it this side? Yeah, that's definitely right. Now at the moment it's all very scratchable, and when we say scratchable it means it's very easy to scratch it. This is after all acrylic paint. So that's why we're going to pop him on his feet and he sits there just like that. So what we're going to do is give this a clear coat. Now, a clear coat can be absolutely anything you like. There's no fast golden rule to this. Personally, I will use something like, my favourite one at the moment is Floor Clear, but as I said, any gloss. So you could literally just come in there with you know, your normal ones, I don't know, Tamiya X22 clear or anybody's clear whatsoever. It just needs a clear coat on this to protect it, and then we're going to let it dry for around about sort of 12 hours, something else like that. Then we can come in and we can weather it, very similar to how we've done the ATAT, but obviously nothing on the scale as we've done with the actual ATAT itself. But generally that's taking care of all those things, and hopefully you can sort of see now how quickly we fixed that terrible joint. Okay, and that's what we're saying. You don't always have to run down the route of fillers and all these big problem things that are going to take time to dry and everything else like that. You can, obviously in the sci-fi world, just give it a little bar. It's a slightly different hue colour. When we do dry brushing and things like that, it should pop and come to life. So what I'm going to do, get a bit of spray bay, give this a coat of clear, and we'll come back here for the wash. Okay, so it's been drying now completely overnight. And as you can see, we have got very nice sort of glossy looking model. Now the reason we've done this one more glossy than we've done in the past, obviously with things up here, it's not going to get as dirty as something like an ATAT would or anything else. So it's going to be quite clean. So this is going to be more sort of subtle weathering. So obviously the more glossier the coat you put down, the less clay will stick to it. And obviously you'll get a slightly different effect with it. So you've seen me do this lots and lots of times before, but we'll just recap. Just grab a decanter. What we're going to do, grab a little pot. Now to start with, we are going to come in with the black. Okay, now the black wash will literally give us our good heavy shadow panel lines into absolutely everything. So this is the Flory Models black wash. If you haven't seen it, have a look. There's loads of things about it. It's clay based. There's no nasties in it whatsoever. You just brush it on, you wipe it away, as you'll see in a moment. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll start over here on the wing. We'll just pick a little bit of this up and we're just going to rub it into the surface detail of the entire model. Now it is important you go absolutely everywhere with it because this will weather all the paintwork. It's not just going to sit in the recesses in the panel lines, it's actually going to go everywhere. Okay, so it is important, as we say, to make sure you go in. If you do want to use it as a panel line wash, you could do that, and then obviously you're going to use lots of water over a gloss coat, and that will give you a very nice glossy finish. So what we'll do is we're going to basically give this a weathering wash coat right the way over. Then we're going to come in and remove it. Okay, then we'll come back in with other washes, colours like dark dirt and things like that. And with those colours, that will enable us to sort of give it a little bit of tonal modulation right the way over it. Some panels will be more sort of browny dirty, the underside ones perhaps, and then the blacker ones, darker ones on the upside and everything else. This is just a quick, easy way of weathering the entire model. Okay, so we do one wing, then we'll come around and do the other. Okay, just on here. And then what we're going to do after this is going to go around and we're going to hand paint in all the details. So various things like the engines at the back, laser cannons at the front, around the gear, the wells and everything else. And speaking of which, when you're doing this wash, make sure you do everything. So make sure the gear gets it, make sure that the doors get it. So we've got the doors just down here in front of us. They get a full weathering wash as well. And if you do notice that the weathering wash is beading up and it's not sort of sticking and flowing nicely like you can see down on here, you know, then what you want to do is just add a little bit of dishwater soap, something else like that, and that'll just help break the surface tension of the actual model and makes the wash flow, because without it what can happen is it can bubble up. That just means your paint coat is extremely glossy, which is very good, but the thing is we want it to sort of etch and bite its way in. That's why in some ways it's always better to have a little bit of a satin finish over a gloss finish. Okay, so we're just going to finish this off down here. So what I'm going to do is carry on. I'm going to put this right the way over everything. Engines, underside, in, out, everything is all going to get the black. We're going to let that dry just for about halfway, so it's not totally dry. Then we're going to come in and we're going to mix some of the dark dirt with it, which I'll show you how to do. Then we can let it dry and then we can wipe it all off. Okay, so this is now starting to dry off, as you can see. It's about halfway through. It means there's some wet spots on there, but predominantly it's all dry. So what we're going to do is going to come in with the dark dirt. Now, the idea with the dark dirt is you're going to splash this around. Because it's sci-fi, I tend to use black. Anything else, I will use dark dirt. Dark dirt gives this sort of engine oily dark colour. But the great thing with using the black is it gives real heavy, deep shadows, which is more sort of sci-fi colour than perhaps natural life. So what we got is our pot, good old shake, and then just going to pop a little bit more. Not going to need loads. Now, as I said, this is a dark sort of engine oil colour, but I'm going to brush. There's my brush. So we just mix up these two we got in here. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to come along, we're just going to put some of this here and there on here. Okay, well, we're not going to go everywhere, but what we're trying to do is just blend through. And then if you've got any areas which are clean, okay, like this panel here, we're just going to recoat it with this one. Okay, and then perhaps we're just going to put a little bit down here. But as you notice, when you rub it, you start to take the wash away. So you just want to be a little bit more lighter. So you're sort of overcoating instead of... What's going to happen is this will change the dirt colour into sort of a more grimy colour, and you can let it naturally fall, and all these areas all down here. Now the gear we're going to do in the dark dirt colour, and the wells we're going to do in the dark dirt colour. So it's got a more, you know, oily look rather than an outside look or a dirt look and anything else like that. And then under here again, just here and there, we're just going to break it up just a little bit with this colour, and you can mix them together. So if you get any wet spots, that's good because they'll blend together, and everything else down here like that. Okay, so we'll just pop some of this on this guy inside the wheel well, all around there. Then the same on here. We're just gonna pop some of this on. Okay, we're just gonna let it do its bit. Okay, just here and there, and if it begins to run, just blend it a little bit, because obviously you don't want total blending. Okay, so these little grills we're just going to go over, looking a little bit clean in this area. So we're just popping here, there, and really everywhere with it. Okay, but you're not trying to pick out specifics or overcoat, you're just putting bits in. And it will all dry back and everything else like that. So what I'm going to do is carry it on just here and there. And as I say, if you find a little clear spot or a clean spot, you want to go and turn it into something a little bit more nasty, then by all means you can just flip it over. Okay, and if you get an area that looks really clean, you can adjust it slightly. Like this wing's looking a little bit clean. So by comparison, I know it had a little bit more gloss on this because, to be honest, I slipped with the gloss. So we're just going to overcoat it a little bit just like that. Blend that in, and then the same on this guy. Okay. So we're just going to pop round. Okay, so what we're going to do now, let that completely dry off. You can use something like a hairdryer if you wanted to, just make sure you're on a cool setting, that way it'll dry without overheating the plastic. Make sure you do the edges as well, really important, otherwise you have clean spots. Okay, and then once that's totally dry, what we can actually do is then rub the entire lot off, and then we can look at the type of weathering we've got and perhaps any ways we want to adjust or change it or anything else like that. Okay, so the wash has been drying now for around about the last 20 minutes. I have popped around with the hairdryer, and you can probably see now the different colours you can actually get. So this is where the dark dirt's over the black, you get the shadowing, and that's what we're going to do. Now, if you were doing this over a more flatter coat, that would be a lot more pronounced. But the thing is, because this is over like a satin coat, most of this is going to come away, but we're hoping a lot of it is still going to get trapped in there, and that way we can sort of play with the weathering effect and everything else like that. So I think this might be easier just to, I'm thinking, pop this off and get it off. See, it's a great thing with these kits. Here we go, because it's a bit wet in there still, as I thought it might be. And what will happen is, if it's still wet, it's going to run out And when it runs out of it, it's going to then cause dirty pits and all the bits and pieces like that, which is obviously something we don't want. So if we just start up here on this tail. So, usual thing, if you take a clean cloth, I'll have a quick recap, okay? If you give it a rub, you can take a little bit away, but obviously we leave a lot of texture behind and all the rest of it. If you wet the cloth, we can then just take everything away. Okay, and you can grab some of it and put it back over. You see how you can sort of smudge across? Now this is the difference on this one. If you've watched the one where we're doing it on the ATAT, that's over a dead flat finish, so it grips and it just doesn't come off and all the rest of it. This is over more of a gloss finish than anything. So actually what you can do, you can use everything to your advantage, because just by lightly rubbing, you can give it grime and dirt, but also you can take it from one area and you can put it into another and everything else like that. Or, the other way of course, if you grab a cloth and you wet it, okay, and then you can literally polish in, so it is just into the recesses, literally just like this, okay. So then what we just need to do is just pop this down. So obviously the wetter it is, the more you're going to take away. So what we're going to do is we're just going to work around these panels, just up and down these centres, just trying to keep everything the same type of effect. Okay, and then just down in here, around these areas. As I say, these are quite heavy panel lining and everything else like that. So the thing is, it's very easy for the wash to come out of it, which is why you have to take a little bit of care. Just be a little bit more gentle with it all, and also because they are deeper, just make sure it is all completely dry, otherwise you'll take far too much away. Okay, but there we go, we've gone from that, okay, and we're just going to repeat on this side. And again, right way over, and as I said, you could leave it quite grimy, you can do streaking effects with this, you can do all types of weathering. This is somewhat like we did to the ATAT, you're just sort of leaving a lot of it behind and all the rest of it. So literally just depending on how you're taking it off and how you're using the wash, if you're getting in there and wetting it quite heavily, what you're going to do is rehydrate more of it, and the more you hydrate, the more it's going to come away. Okay, so when you're on a very shiny surface like this or a glossy finish, you want to just be a lot drier with your cloth, so you don't take as much away. Okay, so that way you can just take away in layers rather than anything else. And this cloth is actually dry here, and it's still coming away quite heavily. Now we've got some drip marks down here. Okay, so I'm going to need a little bit more work on those. So we just wet it, it rehydrates the clay, and it all just rubs away. Okay, literally just like that. So what we do, we're just trying to even it up now. Because what we're going to do with this one, because it's quite a nice shiny surface, we will physically get all this wash off, and then we're going to give it a flat coat. The flat coat will then enable us to come in there with a few little oils, a few little surprises on this guy, just to grime it all up and everything else like that. But there we go, there's the tail done. Now remember, because you've been handling it, you get fingerprints on the back side, so your final pass you always do with a nice clean cloth. Okay, a little bit of moisture, not much at all. Okay, just give a little bit of a rub around, get rid of all those fingerprints, all those nasties. And there we go, we have it just literally like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is carry on now with the rest of the model, taking it off the entire thing. Once we've got it all off, I'm going to give it a flat coat. We'll let that dry, come in there, and then to be honest, with just a few little oils, a little bit of streaking, a little bit of tonal dirt just coming down it, just to break it up and everything. Then we can do all the hand painting and take care of that, make it look all nice. Then once that's done, we can actually get ready for the final reveal. So there we go, that is it done. The wash is all completely off, and as you can see, hopefully you can see, we've got some nice stuff going on underneath. Okay, it's very heavy and everything else, but we need to blend all this in yet. But generally, running around it, as you can see, we are all there. If we bring these down just a little bit so you can see, It is very much looking the part. Now, to be honest, we've given this just a quick coat of flat, so we use XF86 Tamiya flat right the way over this. 50-50 mix, so it's more like a sort of satin flat finish, which is the type of look we're going for, because quite frankly, it's far too shiny. So what we're going to do is let that dry for today, and then we're going to come back tomorrow, and what we're going to use is a little bit of oils, neat, and we're just going to blend around some colours and give it some little bits of streaking, and really just to bring it all into scale. Once we've done that, we're going to pop around, do a little bit of hand painting, so we're going to take care of doing the guns, a few little detail pieces, we'll do some black work of the engines at the back and everything else like that. But really, it's looking very, very nice. Okay, so this has been drying completely overnight, and as you can see, we have a very nice looking Tidarium Shuttle. So the weathering really just gives it that little type of fading and the grime all in here and everything else like that. And as you can see, obviously the wash brings out the detail in all the panel lines as we'd expect. Slightly different thing to this one though, instead of carrying on like with the washes to give a grimy, dirty look and everything else like that, I thought what we do is use oils just for something very, very subtle. Now the idea of using oils is you can put on as much or as less as you actually want to, because the great thing with it is you can use it in so many different ways. Now if you want to see a lot more on this, have a look at this guy. You can go off and have a look at this one now, just search up the ATAT build and you'll see how we did that weathering over the top version to what we're going to do here. Okay, so if you wanted it to be more defined and everything else like that, that's oils and enamels and everything else on there. Here we want to keep it quite subtle, so the two effects we're really going for: a little bit of streaking, you know, little bits like we got on here. We're going to put just some very faint stuff down. Let's say I've got photos of the original one over there from a collector, and he's been kind enough to let me have some photos from his. And basically you can see where they've got little tiny just shadow marks coming down, nothing heavy, because the entire thing is almost got this sort of creamy colour, which I think a lot of that is to do with age, because obviously it's very old now, but also the thing is the way that it was actually weathered back in the day was using similar techniques to using oils, enamel washes, things like that, just chucked over it to go effect, because when you're on studio lights, a bit like in here, it tends to bleach everything out. Okay, so that's why we need to show it a little bit stronger and everything else like that. So what we're going to do is say twofold technique: streaking effect, so we're going to be using thinned oils, okay, and then obviously we're going to come here with neat oils just to give different types of effects in certain areas such as streaking. So one of the big areas, which is quite handy how this all stands up, is just over here. Now I have got a little fault with mine as well. You might notice the panel line sort of disappears in here, so we just need to pop that back in. So very straightforward, we're just going to grab our original scribing tools. Okay, and this is the great thing, because you can do this sort of post form or any point you can sort of come back to this. So we're just going to pop this in and then very light drag. We're just going to pop this panel line back in. Now, as you might notice, this was where we had the join. Okay, and then what we can do is we'll actually just either pop in a little bit of wash, or if we wanted to, something else just to bring all of this to life. Okay, so that thing again, popping it in. Okay, and that is the thing. Don't worry too much about perhaps if it's, you know, you haven't got a line in there or something else like that. You can add it obviously at a later date. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our cue from that little bit of damage just in here. So I'm using 502s. We're using the smoke. It's basically close to black. All right. Now, as you can see, we've got a little bit of cardboard. Now, the idea of doing the cardboard is so it starts to leach out. And as you might be able to see, you've got a little shadow running around the outside. This is where the oils are going everywhere. This will help your paint to dry, because the thing is, being oils, it is going to take a while. You can see this stuff is pretty strong, pretty black. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually just going to pop this just down in this panel line, all in there, just like this, and then again in here, and again in here. Okay, so we're just going to put it in neat, and then we're just going to pop around. We're just going to pick out a few little areas. Okay, so I'm just thinking maybe we're just going to have a little in here. So we're just putting some little lines of this in, nothing too heavy. Okay, just here and there. Okay. So we're just putting in tiny little bit. Don't worry about this drying, it's not going to dry, it'll take a while to dry. Okay, so we've got some little areas perhaps down in here. Okay, and just think about it quite randomly, whichever way you want to do this. So some areas are going to get more, some areas are going to get less. Okay. Tell you what, we'll just put one up here as well. Okay. So we just brush that in there. And that can sit just there. Then we take a dry brush, okay? Excuse me. So, with the dry brush, all we're going to do is one direction stroking downwards, okay? So literally, we're just going to come up here, all right? And then starting, probably at the bottom might be easier, to be honest. All right, so just so we don't overlap, we're just going to come in and we're going to blend this down. Okay, so it's just like a stabbing motion. And you can see how we're getting this to just to come down and give us this type of little effect. Now don't worry about this too much, because obviously if you keep rubbing at this, it's going to get fainter and fainter. The more you rub it, the fainter this is going to get. Okay, but also the thing is, if you add a little bit of thinness to it, it will distress it and make it even thinner. But we want this to be quite showing. Okay, so this little guy here, obviously we're just appreciating that it's probably a run coming down off of here. As again, it's nothing too heavy. These aren't supposed to be huge streaks. We're not trying to do like we were doing to the other one with the ATAT. We're just trying to put in some very mild little streaks. Okay, so just some little bits down in there. Okay, we're assuming that we've probably got something coming down, just a little stain, as you can see, coming down in here. And off of this guy, and down on these. And that's all we're doing, is adding very, very light staining. And we're just working our way up. Okay. Now this over here, what we're going to do is, we're just going to grab a little brush. We're just going to take some enamel thinners. Okay. And to be honest, I'm going to pour just a tiny little bit into a little cup, just to make this easier. Okay. We load up with the enamel thinners on the brush. We wipe it all off, so it's almost like dry brushing. Okay, so now we get rid of it all. And then what you can do is, any of these which are like too heavy, like here, we're just going to go over, and as you notice, what happened is this will hydrate the oil and it will blend even further, and it will fade. And then once it starts to fade, you can take a Q-tip and see how we can turn that now into something extremely fine. So you can go from something over here very strong to something very fine. So again, rub off all the excess. Okay, these are a little bit strong, so we're just going to come over and we're just going to drag all these down and make it look worn and nasty. Okay, right the way over. Now you could use your big brush and it's like makeup really, because you can sort of blend and tone, or if you want to be a little bit cleverer, you can just use your cotton bud. Okay, we can just cause little dirty sort of marks down in here. And then obviously the other thing you can do, take a little bit of thinners. Just going to rub this just over here. You can take this as thin now, and you can then, if you wanted to, put heavy marks on. Okay, so we're just going to run these around in here. This over here, we're just going to clean this up just a little bit. And obviously we're just going to take a paper towel and we're going to blend, and we can see we fixed that panel line now. And then these guys, we can then just, if you wanted to, drag and distress. Okay, and change. right the way over. So we just rehydrate, and that's how we're going to go round and do it all, literally just like that. So again, it's that thing where you can do multiple techniques right the way over. The other thing as well is you can cause a little bit of streaking. So obviously you just take a little bit of thinners, load up your brush, okay, and then you're doing that thing. It's got a little bit still on here. Literally we're just gonna go right the way over in the downward stroke. Okay, and we can cause just streaking and blending to make it all a little bit nicer. Blend this area a little bit strong, right the way over it, like that. Okay, so as you can see, it's one of those things. It's personal choice how you want it to be. Do you want to go strong? If you're going strong, use it neat, a little bit on there, blend it down, very similar to what we've done here. If you want what we're doing on here, it's a lot more subtle. That way, what we're going to do is make up a very thin amount, put it on, and then downward strokes and make it streaking. This will take a while to dry because you have got thinners right the way over it. But now, hopefully, you can see this wing's looking very nice, a little bit broken up. And then what you want to do is just look out for streaking that's drying a little bit artificial, like here. And then you can just manipulate it however you want to do it, okay? And just poke it around and everything else like that. So you end up with something a little bit more subtle, perhaps. Not so much in your face like something like this. Very sort of muted, so when you look at it, it's like, oh, I can see streaking, but you don't see it from a distance. You have to look for it. And that's what we're going to try and do to this guy. Okay, so the wash has been on and drying, and all we're doing now is just cutting in the engine lights. Okay, so 40mm Tamiya tape, pretty straightforward. You stick your nail in it, just makes it easier for it to travel. To be honest, you don't really want to use a brand new blade for this, because the trouble is if you're using a uber sharp brand new blade, it has a habit of wanting to jump out of the panel line. And to be honest, there's a really nice panel line to follow in here. And as I say, the blade is quite happy to go anywhere because it is a new blade, which can be a little bit of a problem when you're trying to make nice sweeping curves that are following. Okay, so that's that done. Now we have to be a little bit careful here because, to be honest, the oils are going to take a few days to dry off. Okay, so there's one and there's two. Now we've got various options for this. There we go. We could, if we wanted to, spray this silver. All right. Once it's sprayed silver, is to come in with like a blue over the top. That would be nice. One little option to do with like a cool blue over there and everything else. I think that'll look quite nice. The other option is obviously to use just a metallic blue, okay, or anything else like that. You could use like a bare metal foil. I wonder if this will hold itself up a little bit. There we go. Or something else like that. So you do have various options which way. Personally, I'm going to spray down here a little bit of something like an aluminium colour. So we are going to use, I'm thinking we don't want it to be, I'm wondering about stainless metallic blue. See, this is the AK metallizer. It's got a metallic blue here. Just wondering if that might do it, because we want a nice sort of engine blue. It might be a little bit too much. I was actually thinking, to be honest, more of a stainless steel, because that has that blue hue to it, which I think I'm going to go with, because we can always overcoat it if it's not looking brilliant. Okay, so what we're going to do, you can see this stainless steel colour has a really nice sort of blue hue to it. So what we're going to do, just grab a different airbrush, one that we use for metallizers. Okay, I'm just going to turn down that air pressure nicely. Okay, right, so let's try a little bit of this. And as I say, this has got a really, really nice little blue hue to it. We're not going to need gallons of this. Okay, so as I say, we're going to be very localised, so I'm not going to worry about this in the spray booth or anything else like that. Okay, so we're just going to check our flow. A little bit of air. As I say, a little bit less air. Okay, and we're just going to blow in this area down the back. You may need a couple of coats, but what we're thinking is this is perhaps more of a turned off engine rather than a running engine. So I'm just hoping the blue is going to shine through. If it's not looking very blue, what I'm probably going to do, to be honest, is give it a light spray of something, perhaps over the top. And to be honest, that's looking bluish. Very difficult to see because it's on grey. And I think... Don't drop your airbrush, ideally. Okay, I'm thinking perhaps perhaps a light spritzing of metallic blue over the top. Okay. Just empty out that blue that's in here. Okay, then what we'll do, we'll just take a little bit of this. As I say, I'm just going to put a light dusting of this over the top rather than physically spray it. Okay, so we just check our hue. With the silver. Now we're into more of the blue. As I say, it's a metallic blue, so let's just see how we get on with this. Okay. Trying to keep it even. Right, I'm going to run with that and just see what we've got. Okay, so I'm going to be a little bit careful. I think that'll do. That's quite nice. There we go. Nice little blue hue. This will be one of those things where you catch it in different lights, but we don't want it to look like it's working. It's just a hue on there, literally just like that. Okay, and actually I think that worked really, really well. So that will complete it. See, we've gone around, done the black work on the guns, all the bits and pieces like that. As I said, these oils are going to take a few good days to go off. Now, obviously, there's various things you could carry on with it. This has been literally a quick one-day build just to pop this together to see exactly what we've got, how it looks and everything else like that. If you wanted to, I'm sure you could add LED lighting to this. You certainly could scratch build it a little bit better. If I was going to do it again, to be honest, I'd probably pull all the guns off and redo those. There are a particular weak spot of this. But generally, the detail isn't too bad. When I'm looking at the original one over there, it's not as sharp and as nice as you might think and all the rest of it. And to be honest, with a little bit of weathering as we've done on this guy, and we've gone right the way around it and taken care of seam lines the quick way, and well, we've cheated and everything else like that, I think it's turned out really, really nice. So there we go. That is the Tiderium Shuttle. Okay, and everything else like that. A great kid's toy, once again, turned into a really nice model.